Did you know that 98% of all statistics are incorrect? Now, how did I come to that conclusion? Does anybody ask how I got to the conclusion of how statistics are established? What's very interesting is to look at how opinion is formed and how numbers are manipulated. For instance, if I say to you that 3 out of 4 people over the age of 65 will get Alzheimer's, you'd be quite alarmed. But if I told you that 3 out of 5 people may not get Alzheimer's, would you be alarmed by that? No. So if I told you how many people have been infected by something, you'd have one opinion. If I told you how many people have been recovered from something, you'd have another opinion. So if you're trying to drive opinion and you want to convince people about a particular thing, then you use statistics very well. And that's why you find at late night programming, they have these adverts of people who, Joe Dispenza uses a beautiful example in one of his books, saying that that's why they call it late night programming, because that's what it's doing. It's programming your mind. So late night, you'll hear that 75% of women over the age of 50 will get shingles. But nobody asks, how did they come to the number of 75%? How many people came in the test to be able to prove that? If you look at a population of 7 billion people, how would you know that women over a certain age were getting shingles? You don't. And that's how they manipulate figures. So they'd put 20 women of a particular age group, not looking at all these different factors that may lead to them being more susceptible to shingles, and say and make an assessment like that. And so your brain says, uh-oh, I better do something about this. And of course, there's a wonderful drug that you can take that will prevent you getting shingles, and so you can prevent that. And it's the same way how we have a negativity bias. So our negativity bias looks at things that are not working rather than the things that are. For instance, if you did a post and you saw 100 comments and 99% of were very positive comments, and one person said, you don't know what you're talking about, it's absolute crap, where do you focus on? That one thing. When your foot is hurting, your attention goes, oh my God, what's wrong with my foot? But you're not seeing the 99% of everything else that's working for you. And it's very important to note about our negativity bias, because people can manipulate this. And so it's very important to ask, how did you come to that figure, and investigate that. Let me give you another example of negativity bias. You're walking around and someone says to you, have you got something wrong with your left arm? And you're thinking, no, I don't think so. He said, oh, I saw you lifting your left arm a bit funny. And you're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. You go to a second person and they say the same thing to you and says, something wrong with your arm. Have you seen that? Have you seen there's something wrong with your arm? Now you look over and you're like, is there something wrong with my arm? If the third person tells you that, you're screwed. That's it. You're going to be paranoid about this. You're going to definitely get something checked out. And here's another way when we go to a doctor. A doctor tells you something and you say, I better get a second opinion. Why? Because you want to see if there's a varied opinion from the first opinion. But when you go to the second doctor and he confirms what the first doctor says, do you leave it as that? Are you trying to get a different result? Because if you were trying to get a different result, you'd go and speak to 15 doctors. Now, if you spoke to 15 doctors, what do you think the chances are that they would all agree on the same observation? So what we want is confirmation bias. So we want to believe a certain way, and then we look for confirmations about that particular bias. And it's very dangerous for our well-being to be susceptible to influence and opinion. Even our own brains are sometimes tricking us to focus on the negative rather than